Here at The Listening Post, when we've examined the media story in Brazil, we've focused on the conglomerates like Globo TV, Record TV, SBT, and the power that they wield. This time, as the country prepares to vote in the first round of presidential elections on Sunday, October 7th, we're looking at social media. That's because Brazil is Facebook's third largest market. More than half of the population there is on WhatsApp. That's where Brazil's far-right presidential candidate, Jair Bolsonaro, has taken his political campaign. Bolsonaro has been described by some as Donald Trump meets Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte. And like them, he's turned the mainstream media into his useful enemies. Bolsonaro has a 10-point lead in the polls in a country whose traditional parties have been stained by scandal. A populist outsider has moved into the political vacuum. Our starting point this week is one of the primary battlegrounds in this election, the social media space in Brazil. Jair Bolsonaro on one of the primary information tools affecting this election, his mobile phone.
WhatsApp aqui, de domingo para hoje tem 88 mil recados. A lista é enorme entre grupos e pessoas.
Social media allows him to work without filters. In Brazil, they don't trust politicians, but also they don't trust the mainstream media. They don't think that what appears in the media is truth. So the fact that Bolsonaro is relying so much on social media is part of his appeal.
He's not a front runner by chance. He's a candidate who's very strong on WhatsApp, on social media. People get a lot of feeds, lots of videos from Bolsonaro, and it's no accident that he's leading the polls.
Jair Bolsonaro spent years in the National Assembly as a fringe politician before becoming the leader of a relatively small party which he's taken to the right. He's ex-military, makes no secret of his admiration for the junta that ruled Brazil from 1964 to 85, and he's running on a law and order ticket. He goes into the first round of this election as the front runner, consistently polling at over 30%. Despite being the victim of a stabbing last month, from which he says he's still recovering. His critics call him homophobic, misogynistic. That's what happens when you equate homosexuality with pedophilia.
Agora, você de casa contrataria motorista gay para levar seu filho na escola? Tá na cara que não.
Or you go on camera and call a female political opponent unworthy of being raped.
Jamais isso para você que você não merece.
Then there was the time he called for the sterilization of the poor in a country where more than 50 million live in poverty.
Porque nós aqui controlamos a nossa e o pessoal pobre não controla.
Bolsonaro's supporters either don't find any of those things disqualifying, or they don't believe them when they're reported on mainstream news outlets. Because millions of them are getting their news straight from the candidate on WhatsApp or from his supporters, like Douglas Garcia, the founder of Direita São Paulo, a movement pushing Bolsonaro's agenda on social media.
Anything he publishes on social media gets amplified. He was not the one to build the internet as a medium to propagate his political campaign, but it was the conservatives who found in the internet a medium to exchange information without putting their personal security in danger, to disseminate the ideas that Bolsonaro managed to integrate into his campaign, as he will not be censored on social media, unlike what happens on the mainstream media, where he has no voice.
What is happening in Brazil is that social media is facilitating candidates that are portraying himself as outside the establishment, and no matter how we can question that, they can easily reach their supporters and they can counteract what is happening. Even though there is some information available there, the members of these groups prefer to believe what their own candidates or what the people supporting their candidates are saying. Everything that goes against what they believe is mentioned as fake news.
Brazilians aren't just on social media. They are, to an unusual degree, involved. The Facebook numbers there are through the roof. And when polled recently on whether they had used social media as a source of news over the previous week, 2 out of 3 said yes. That's more than twice as high as Germany, almost 50% higher than the US. About 120 million Brazilians, more than 1 in 2, are on WhatsApp. News spreads quickly on WhatsApp groups, and since it's coming from friends, family, or the candidates themselves, it's up close, feels personal, and it's 24/7.
TV is still important to Brazilians, but the flow of information about the election is much greater on WhatsApp. TV is still watched in places where the internet is not so popular, among the poorest segments of the population. But the internet, social networks, and especially WhatsApp have made all the difference.
And unfortunately, a lot of it is misinformation. A lot of lies end up circulating. People believe them because they're often from people close to them, say family members who circulate these messages, these videos. That's how it ends up becoming credible. But it's a lie. And Bolsonaro's political strategy is to spread fake news, to spread lies.
Pinning the fake news charge on Bolsonaro personally is difficult, but there's no doubt that some of his supporters have been producing plenty of that kind of material. In July, Facebook shut down almost 300 pages and accounts run by a conservative political group known as MBL for, as Facebook put it, hiding behind fake accounts, misleading Brazilians about the origin of the content and spreading misinformation. Fact-checkers have been working overtime in this election, but they are struggling to keep up and have an impact. Many of them are scouring pro-Bolsonaro social media platforms for fake news. And some of those platforms offer media watch services of their own, focusing on the output of mainstream news outlets.
Onde o Bolsonaro mantém a dianteira com uma certa distância, apesar de todos os ataques que ele vem sofrendo da mídia.
Chipping away at their credibility, and in doing so, defending the interests of their chosen candidate.
Bolsonaro and his team attack the traditional media a lot, and they use social media to say he's a victim of attacks from the left, who call him a fascist, racist, homophobe. They use it to say his critics exaggerate. They use it to deny statements he's made. And they also use it to spread fake news. These lies have a devastating effect. A lot of people believe this misinformation.
Up until 4 or 5 years ago, there was more or less a belief that social media was a tool that was benefiting mostly left-wing groups against oppression. I think now we have seen, not only in the case of Brazil, but also in Brexit in the United States, how right-wing groups, particularly those in the fringe, have successfully employed social media to spread their ideas, to form community, and also to question what they call is the establishment.
When Brazilians talk about the media establishment, they're talking about Globo. It's the biggest media company in Latin America, hugely influential, and the bane of the Brazilian left, because it's conservative and has traditionally played the role of political kingmaker. Right-wing candidates have always courted Globo. Jair Bolsonaro didn't bother, knowing he was too far right for the network's taste, and betting he didn't need its endorsement. He hasn't taken part in any televised debates since last month's stabbing. Bolsonaro says he can't. Doctor's orders. Not everyone believes that. The final debate of round one took place this past Thursday, 3 days before voting day. Again, Bolsonaro was a no-show.
No caso do debate,
He preferred not to appear on the debate aired on Globo, the most important one, because he knows that he could make mistakes and expose himself to attack from his opponents, especially given his controversial proposals.
Mas informou que não poderia comparecer porque ainda se recupera do atentado que sofreu no dia 6 de setembro.
In theory, the stabbing helped because he had a good reason not to participate in the debates. Look, I'm on medical treatment. But he tended to avoid them even before the attack.
Ele já cogitava não ir aos debates.
So while his opponents were debating each other on Globo, he did an interview on a rival network, which then revealed it was backing him. Before calling it a night, though, he spent a little time on Facebook Live, talking to his supporters, on the device that has driven his campaign, changed Brazilian politics, and the way it is covered, his phone.